Hi, folks. This is Mountain Man coming to you from parts unknown. I apologize for being a little bit late this evening, but I am here, and I hope you all are having a good evening, and I hope you all got to see the memorial today for Charlie Kirk. And be not afraid, is what we've been told. Is what we've been told. How is everybody tonight? Sissy, Pappy, Two Bears, nice to see you. Todd, and nice to see you all. I want to see who's going to come in tonight. Elva's here, Darla's here, Robin's here, Sherry's here, Gary's here. Ha ha! It's time, is what I put on my thumbnail prior to the viewing the speeches and the widow of Charlie Kirk. I was really fired up like it was the other night, but you get tempered. You get tempered by grief, tempered by the weight of what's happened. What degree of mercy should we show? Is there any mercy available? Mercy to the guilty is cruelty to the innocent. She's forgiven him. She's forgiven him. But like Trump said, he's not as nice. He's not as nice. Hi, Rain. Nice to see you. And the speakers touched on a lot of points. I mean, there were things rolling through my head, things I've said many times on broadcasts, and as we're all on the same page, mostly, there were repeated tonight themes that I hope would be touched on, such as what I just mentioned, be not afraid. And again, we heard armor of God. How many times have we been hearing that in the last few days? And Erica brought up one that I brought up a while back. What it all boils down to. Thy will be done. When things happen you don't understand, there just doesn't seem any reason behind it. When you feel that this is it, it's beyond hope. Always remember that thy will be done. So, I can't repeat things that have been said over and over and over again, but I do want to discuss things that weren't brought up. How could they know? How could they know to bring up things that are part of my life experience that I've shared with you all in the past? So I'll share them here with you, trying to make sense of things that are insane. Thankfully, Trump, I believe it was Donald Jr. I may not. There were so many speakers tonight. Wonderful speakers. I mean, what a night being viewed by people all around the world. But that God picks his leaders. God picks his leaders. He picks them to wield the sword. And as for the person that committed this horrible act, no, I'm not going to pull a Jimmy Kimmel and say, this kid. We had people involved in the American Revolution that were younger than him, that were able to grasp the concepts of natural law, the power of God, and the foundations of our civilization without wandering down some hedonistic pagan path of dressing up like animals, fornicating with other men who think they're women. So no, I'm not going to say kid. He was a grown man. And his notions, his philosophy, if you could call it that, his behaviors are of the devil. It's just that simple. And forgiveness from a heartbroken widow is more than he could ever hope for. And she gave it to him. But our leader wields the sword. It's his duty to wield it when necessary in a terrible fashion. That's why I put forgiveness and retribution. Roberto, how are you doing? I'm looking to see if anybody. Oh, Miss Mendersu, how are you? Nice to see you, Melvita, Benjamin, Debbie. So you can feel it. You can feel the electricity. You can feel the bubbling of what's going on while we mourn, not only for Charlie Kirk's loss of his life, but for what this nation has sunk to. From that, we have to develop the strength, the determination, rise on his example, and fight back. And we've been doing that for 10 years. We have installed a leader that will use that sword. And I think it's time. I think it's time to quit playing games, things that we've been seeing for years being swept away as conspiracies or debunked by a dishonest media, whether they're ignorant or paid for or all the above. It's time to start dumping the truth out there in big dollops. Make sure they repeat it. If they don't, then take their broadcast license. Remove the individuals responsible for stating falsehoods, whether it's because they're ignorant or they're doing it knowingly. Either way, they're not serving the public. And it's time to serve the public. And it's time for criminals to be brought to justice. And it's time for people to be arrested. I don't know where they'll start. But I know we can't have people with subversive or criminal intent sitting on the bench. We've all known that we've had them sitting in the House of Representatives and the Senate for decades and decades. But boy, have we informed the public about how badly the judiciary has been compromised by people who weren't even born in this country. We're up to about 830 judges, federal judges, local district judges that are nowhere enshrined in the Constitution to have their offices exist except by the will of Congress. Congress giveth, Congress can taketh away. And out of those 835 judges, how many of them do we have that weren't even born in this country, have dual citizenship, have another loyalty to another country, who have blatantly subverted the executive branch in favor of an invading force, an incursionary force? How many judges have we seen let go violent individuals or participate in frame-ups, frame jobs? And how come out of a country, a nation of 350 million plus people, those precious 830 some seats have to be claimed by people who don't have our good in mind as a nation? How many people have suffered like Charlie suffered during the summer of love? During the fact that there were criminals out on the street that had no business being out on the street that lost their lives. How many more people are going to lose their lives before we say exactly what I saw in the chats? Enough is enough. A sentence, a slogan Obama had the nerve to use. It's not a big pill to swallow anymore. The information will not be information overload if it's dumped out there. What's going to happen tomorrow? We're being told by the President of the United States that's going to be some big news coming out. He told us what it would be. I thought he was going to mention a cancer vaccine for a second, because as I've been ruminating and cogitating on why I've been warned and then suspended. And just so happened those are the times that I mentioned the Russians' report of a cancer vaccine. How much money does cancer make to the pharmaceutical industry, in the medical industry, and the bureaucrats and the lobbyists that want to help? I don't know, maybe that's down the road that's coming. But it's about autism. Autism. I remember back in the 80s is when I noticed this Ritalin business, pumping kids with Thorazine and Ritalin rather than discipline, and teaching them the basics about the 10 Commandments and the Bible and what the wages of sin are. No, just give them some pills. I'm trying not to have hate in my heart for that individual that did what he did to Charlie Kirk. But I have anger. Many of you have been with me for a long time. I spoke of something that's been going on for years, and I called it a silent fury. That's what we're experiencing now, times 10. And we're not the only ones. This kind of high profile injustice, disgusting act, cowardly act can bring nothing but fury. Fury is different than hate. Anger is different than hate. Retribution is different than vengeance. I wish he hadn't done it. I wish Cain hadn't killed Abel. I wish Adam and Eve hadn't taken a bite out of the fruit of the tree of knowledge. But they did. And they paid a price. God informs. God provides you with the innate knowledge, the ability to mentally discern right from wrong. But he never was, as I said before, a helicopter parent. He could have smacked them on the hand and said, don't touch that. Didn't I say don't touch that and that the wages of sin are death? Oh, yeah, sorry, sir. No, he didn't do that. He observed them. He could have saved Abel. And I wish they didn't do what they did. And many other horrible, atrocious things I wish people didn't do. But they did. That doesn't mean that they're not going to pay a price. And Donald Trump said maybe Erica can make me a little softer the way I look at it, but I don't think so. I don't look at it this way. And she's free to forgive. And as I said, that's more than that person deserves, more than he could ever hope for, and probably the greatest gift he'll get on the face of this earth while he's here is her forgiveness. But other than that, bets are off. The bets are off. So what was said today that I could add to, or a comparison for comfort? Remember, I told the story of a man who was very dark and didn't speak much. Ended up being one of the most jovial friends I ever had, a good sense of humor, very gregarious. But he wasn't always that way. His first son died in a car accident. His wife was driving. The boy was a year old. He never he couldn't get over it. And he went for years in a very sullen and angry state. And I told the story, and I hope I'm not boring you all. But one night at a gathering that he kind of grudgingly came to, there was an older lady there that knew him before his son died, knew about the change. And she said, "Will you talk to me for a little bit?" He said, "Yeah." And they went in the other room and had a talk. He came out, he's quiet, he's gentle, but he did leave early. The next day, he was a different person. And for quite a time after that, he was different. Better every day. And he confided in me that what she told him was that once in a while, whether we like it or not, every now and then, God wants to pluck a rose. We don't know why. We don't know when. We may not like it, but it's his rose. So maybe that's one way to look at what happened to Charlie Kirk. So what's the disclosure going to be tomorrow? I know what I'd like it to be. I'd like it to be that while we're nestled in our beds, cogitating on current events, what it means, that certain people, and I'll say again, of the devil, are getting rounded up. It wouldn't bother me. That would be great. I don't, not for vengeance, but I think it's time. I think it's time. And I think it's time for bulletins to go out about the criminality, whether it's starting with the medical industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the three-letter agencies, whatever. Time to start dismantling, as I've said and Trump has said, in a kinetic fashion, physical action. Are we close to the day? Look to X, my fellow Americans. We're taking back our country. Are we coming close to that time? We have a unparalleled alliance between political ideology, Democrat and Republican, starting with RFK and Donald Trump. And we all know the names on down the line. Even Fetterman has planted his flag on the side of common sense, morality, decency. Who else is coming along? Maybe this notorious four that voted to get Ilhan Omar off the hook. Maybe that was all we need to show that they'll never get on board. They've been given all the chances anyone needs to give. So where will it start? What is the cause of autism, folks? They found the cause of autism. I remember when I told you all about my work with young people. Emotionally disturbed was the label they used back then, 40 some years ago. You might have saw 1 out of 100 that was autistic, truly autistic, repeating words, rocking in place. really not connected emotionally. But we're going to find out tomorrow. Is it something where there's an entity or group of people culpable? And if so, what's going to happen to them? Or is it all just a big accident? Holy cow. It was kind of like when, the story about antifreeze, ethyl glycol, a guy working in the factory, I believe in West Virginia, just, oh man, look at this stuff. It never freezes. And it'll cool your engine. Of course, he meant multi-millionaire. He just found it was an accident. Is that how they came across this discovery? Or is it something people kept quiet on purpose? Something people inserted into our environment on purpose? Or refused to remove it, even if it was accidentally activated or used, and down the road, holy cow. Do you think, now look, they've been making fun of Bobby Kennedy. He's not a doctor. What does he know? He's got worms in his brain. His voice sounds funny. Never said a damn thing about Bill Gates. He's not a damn doctor. He looks like Jared Fogel's uncle. He's been to Epstein Island. So you think that Bobby Kennedy is so Einstein-like that he found what the cause of autism was because he's just naturally gifted genius, and nobody in that government organization or the medical field had any idea that was the case. Or is it more likely that people were knowingly allowing something to occur that caused misery and suffering? Was it an experiment? Is it an experiment? Did it start as an experiment? So we'll, I guess, find out what it is. Are we going to go in the mode of a psyop of absorption? Absorption. People absorbing the information. I've talked about a cacophony or cacophony, however it wants to be worded, is used to get people to not focus. So you can pull a stunt on them. And so much crap is being flying around in the air, you don't see the stunt, the theft, or the deceit, or whatever. So is it going to be the first drip? Give people time to analyze it, think about it, and say, wait a minute. I don't know. We'll find out tomorrow, won't we? Trump says he's very excited to do it. Hi, 157. Nice to meet you. Welcome aboard. Graybeard, nice to see you. Mike, nice to see you. If I missed anyone earlier in the chats, yeah. How many Debbies we got? Debbie's here. Debbie's here. Good. More the merrier. Rain says it's the food. God is with us all, 157. And have I not commanded you? That's in Corinthians somewhere. Be not afraid 100 times in the Bible. Actually, that's just it's 365 times. Yeah, they're the symbolism and their occult and their magic, all the sorcery, the things we've been forbidden to consider as Christians or people who believe in one true God, they practice. So, what do you think will be the big reveal as to what autism is? We can only speculate. But I tell you one thing, I noticed a lot of packages I bought of my usual favorite treats that I'm imbibing from every now and then, like ginger snaps and stuff like that. They're in the high fructose corn syrup in them, and I saw a lot of companies were forswearing high fructose corn syrup. Coca-Cola being one of the biggest ones. Is there something coming up? Oh yeah, Graybeard, the whole medical community following orders, and the innate desire in people to control others. That's part of our original sin. People don't want to mind their own flipping business and leave people the hell alone. Roland, nice to see you. All right, get yourself a trailer house. That's good. We're glad to hear that. Trump has put out a number of warnings. I guess, hi, Yvonne. He put out that looked like a copy of a message to Pam Bondi, a text where he said people are saying it's the same old song and dance. Nobody's going to do anything. Something needs to be done. And he named off the people, just a small list of many. What is the holdup? Well, prosecutors that work against you, like the one Trump just told to get the hell out, and he resigned. The left is trying to play it off. The left is trying to play it off that he resigned because he's noble, that he wasn't going to make up stuff against Letitia James. Well, if they find out proof that he's actually saying stuff like that, and that he is disregarding evidence or hiding evidence, obstruction of justice should be on the table. When I heard RFK say about his granddaughter packing to go to college, she packed away a Bible. And she was asked why, because apparently she had been very much into that. She said, I want to live like Charlie Kirk, more like Charlie Kirk. Man, that was powerful. And she's one of hundreds of thousands of young people. We're breaking the spell. Well, could Pam Bondi be dragging her feet because she's been threatened? Could Pam Bondi be dragging her feet because she knows a judge will manipulate and throw things out? Or that people will go fix a jury like they did in Durham, both his cases? Oh, we found he broke the law, but we just didn't think it was that important. Remember what I was telling about this push? This push for jury nullification being put out by YouTube on a sponsored video. You can be more powerful than the entire government through jury nullification. I showed you all a picture of the ad. Yes, that's a good point. 157. That it's a psyop to get them puckered up, so to speak. Get them good and puckered. I want to make sure I don't drop off. And that is part of the operation known as PAIN. That's why I've been using this Punisher skull with Trump's hair on it. They were desperate and afraid. They've been desperate and afraid for years. Or are they waiting to implement the terrorist declaration for Antifa, which would implicate a lot of people who are financing them, just to get it all wrapped up in a nice little package with a bow? Well, 157, I want to echo a caution I read one of my kind viewers tell you. Kind of keep quiet about that stuff. The time will be right. They are dangerous. Don't give out too much. And that's like I was saying the other night. That's why I keep my identity uh, out of the public eye. But we got a list of names. We'll see what Pam Bondi does with it. Or is it a list of names to make another list of names feel comfortable or let their guard down? You know how a boxer feints with her left and then pops you in the nose with her right? But it is grinding. It is hard to deal with day after day after day. I can only imagine, I cannot even imagine knowing what he knows what it's like for Trump. But for him to give up as much as he's given up and to risk everything that he's risked, this has to be a very dangerous and serious situation. And as we've been told, we got one shot at it to do it in a way that will cause the least civil unrest possible. Yeah, 157. Gary's right. Yeah, I people can call me crazy, but I get eyed up and stifled, and I'm sure the wrong people know who I am. But as long as they keep me down to the same amount of views night after night after night, a few subscriptions week after month after week after month, and people don't hear what I have to say, what's the matter to them? You see some of these bigger voices out there, they're nervous. Like Ben Shapiro, Tucker Carlson. They're at the level of taking people out. And they're doing it. And they're going to continue to try to do it. Yeah, I agree, Debbie. Today was very moving. But we're activated, we're motivated, and this is a revival. More National Guard in cities. Well, there's so many sheriffs and local police on board. They got a lot of firepower, and a lot of people are retired military that join police. I think the only thing we heard about was the 10th Mountain Division in the drops. the 10th Mountain Division. But Trump followed up the copy of the message he left. He gave us a copy about take some action. It's, where people are telling me we're just hearing the same, oh, here we go again, just another. He followed it up with, this is just a couple hours ago. Pam Bondi is doing a great job as Attorney General of the United States. She is very careful, very smart, loves our country, but needs a tough prosecutor in the Eastern District of Virginia, like my recommendation, Lindsay Halligan, to get things moving. What we don't need is a Democrat-endorsed Republican. I will be nominating Lindsay Halligan to be the United States Attorney in this very important part of our great country. She will be fair, smart, and will provide desperately needed justice for all. So Trump already made his pick. Virginia, part of the DMV. What's going on in Virginia right now, folks? Does anybody know? Something big's going on. Something's big. Early voting has started for a new governor. Glenn Youngkin has one term, and that's it. Glenn Youngkin. Nobody said a word about it. The governor's race in Virginia. Without goggling, anybody know who the Republican nominee is for the Virginia governor's race? Part of the DMV, the Magic Kingdom, that's loaded up with federal workers and bureaucrats in Northern Virginia, right on the border of the Magic Kingdom. All right, 157, thank you for coming by. Hi, Dean. The children will have to lead the way. They are our legacy. Hi, Randy. Have a great night, 157 Beard. Be careful out there. So, who is the Republican nominee for Virginia governor? Why have we not heard about it? Because they're going to lose. That's why. That's why we're not hearing about it. And Trump has already voiced over a year ago very strong displeasure with somebody who turned out to be in a costume, a philosophical costume. Turned out to be nothing but another rhino wokey doke. And I thought it was great when that person won. So what does it matter if a Democrat wins in Virginia? If the person that was put in to replace Glenn Youngkin is just another rhino, half-baked wokey doke. Well, you just heard Trump say Virginia is a very important part of our great country. So why isn't there more talk about who's going to be the next governor of Virginia? And you all will remember the name, right, when I say it. That person posed with rifles and AR-15s and looked tough. And then after they got in office, they made President Trump very, very angry. So I'm gonna start my music. Dun 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 boom boom. A famous Republican everybody thought was just wonderful. Oh, it's so cool. Winsome Sears. Winsome Sears, you remember her? She was considered to be a young, bright, rising star. And here we're going in to early voting for Virginia, and nobody is even mentioning it. But we're going to have a prosecutor in Virginia that's going to keep them straight, right? If you can't get the governor, get a good flipping prosecutor. I'm going to mention it one more time. I've tried to reach out a couple of times and I'm not getting a response, and I feel terrible. Our friend Justin Bean, I haven't seen anything in the chats or response. And I know you all have been keeping him and his family in your prayers. I won't call out names beyond that because if somebody's not in the chats, I don't want to call out their names. But California has you upset, Rain. Well, what is this business of Gavin Newsom telling Tulsi Gabbard she's going to have a very bad day? It's like he's asking for it. Hi, Dean. Justin Bean, he's suffering from brain cancer. Remember Miss Minsu? His daughter came in the chats, and then I got suspended on YouTube. I mentioned him every broadcast since I was broadcasting on Rumble, but I haven't heard. Thank you, Gary. Gab's asking more for a spanking. I think he's trying to provoke something. I haven't even heard what this Democrat. I never heard of the Democrat running for Virginia governor. That's a weird name. Is it another dual citizenship individual with patently adversarial political views, adversarial to the Constitution? Is that going to be what is the breaking point? Where you have leaders like in New York with that character Mohammed or whatever his name is, And maybe this person in Virginia, I can't remember her name. I think it's a female. Have to look it up. Is it going to be somebody that is openly hostile to the Constitution? Oh, okay, Miss Minsu. Yeah, sounds good. You're cooking dinner. Oh, it's okay. Do you miss it? I just mention it if each broadcast and see if anybody's out there. But do you, talking of uh, getting the National Guard in other states or other areas, why would you do that if you had cooperative governors? We already know who's not cooperative. Abigail Spamberger. Thank you, Mr. Kibler. Boy, that's a name, Abigail Spamberger. Got to look her up. Is she a Marxist? Are they winning these positions using foreign influence, foreign money, Antifa support, illegal voters, illegal immigrant voters? If that was the case, it certainly would have the uh, ability to remove them. The president could remove them. Abigail Spamberger, I got to check her out. And what more evidence of a communist Marxist infiltration than having people that are openly communist in violation of the Communist Control Act, and especially if they're using nefarious and illegal means to obtain their office. Well, half the Democrat Party's full of Antifa members. Most of the mainstream media, I'll put it that way, most of the mainstream media is nothing but an arm of the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party is supporting a major terrorist group. Oh, Todd. Uh-huh. The three-letter agency that's infiltrated Congress and now governorships, well, they've been in governorships, even the presidency, at least since George Sr. Yeah, Tennessee Ridge Runner, right. Yeah. Well, his daughter told us that he had was battling brain cancer. And maybe she'll tune in tonight and I can have a word with Jess and Bean. Like I said, I don't want to call any real names um, unless somebody's here and says it's okay. Well, that's the key. They're funding. They're stick a pig, watch them squeal. They're not getting more money, but they're going to get dangerous. And how many things is Trump juggling? Overseas stuff. I see a lot of videos were being put out about Charlie Kirk not having an exit wound. Not having an exit wound. And I just want to caution people not to fall into a state of trepidation and fear about this whole thing. Lincoln didn't have an exit wound. Lincoln was shot with a .44 caliber. Granted, it was a ball shape, not a bullet shape. But a lead bullet smashes, flattens out when it hits bone. .44 caliber, inches from his head, he did not have an exit wound. And I don't want to be macabre about it, but I saw the close-up video of him getting struck with a bullet. And I did end up having to watch it again just to be sure about what I'm talking about, what my hypothesis is. And I read a lot of books on the Second World War, descriptions of injuries, from that soldiers have written and historians, and different battles. A lot of times people get shot in the stomach, and the bullet will end up near their neck. Very odd things. In this case, I watched it, knowing that the trajectory is a downward trajectory from about 20 to 25 feet elevation from where Charlie was sitting. The bullet was traveling in a downward trajectory. It hit him in his jugular vein, and I believe it struck his clavicle, which is a large bone in the back. They're doing an autopsy. They've done an autopsy, and it ended up somewhere inside his body, or fragments of it. I'm sure there were multiple fragments from the main body of the bullet. Sorry to hear that, Benjamin. Well, I'm glad you're still with us. Yeah, if it's all soft tissue, you're going to have an exit wound. A lot of times it's as big as a dinner plate. Goes in about the size of your thumb and comes out as big as a dinner plate. Miss Mindersue, do you really think it was CGI? Well, that's something that should not be discounted. Because what were we told many times? That we're watching a show. What makes a good movie is good actors. And there it is. Yeah, Roland says, hope he's still alive, and it was part of the show. Wouldn't that be wonderful? It's a show people need to see. Now, is that wrong to, reading the chats of what people are saying? Some people would say, well, it's tricking the public. It's fooling the public. No, it's not wrong. Because we know what happens when a society is destroyed by socialism, communism, Marxism, whatever you want to call it. We know what happens when people lose the right to protect themselves. What was considered a show would be happening in reality thousands of times a day. But people don't care unless their ox is getting gored. Until it hits home. That's why one of the things people were saying the other day, yesterday, and day before, just what I saw in the chats, I think it was Miss Sue, we're all Charlie. Everybody felt it. It's different than seeing a politician's get it, or a movie star, or John Lennon. It's different when an everyday person who isn't seeking fame and fortune, isn't in it for anything but the truth, a genuinely good person, a family man, Joe the plumber type family guy, gets murdered. And then the disgusting display that was not a show put on by white hats was the reaction, the lifting of the veil of the degenerate thought processes behind the people who have fallen for this tyrannical garbage, this hedonistic, pagan centered crap. That unnerves people. You see it in the schools, you see it at work, you see it in the store, you see it on TikTok videos. Satan himself mocking people through his little minions. So, would I put on a show? Would I use CGI to shock people? To provoke the exposure of people with black hearts? Yeah, I'd do it. Because if you don't do it, the end of the road is that these things really do happen, and they happen all the time. And they really do happen to people that you know, or are your relatives, or even to you. Like the young lady on the subway. That was real. I'm just looking through the chats. And I got to say something every now and then, and people think I got cut off. Debbie, I agree. It feels like it. I would love for him to be alive, but it feels like it was real. Just not showing the truth on who did it, in my opinion. Oh, that guy did it. the boyfriend or roommate or whatever you want to call him of the perpetrator, his own family has come out saying that he became a dangerous person, that he was strung out on drugs, that they didn't feel comfortable having him around. Well, that's a natural reaction to somebody who dresses up like a cartoon animal and behaves in the way he behaves on platforms meant for children. Miss Menders, do you really think Uranus not gone? Hi, Jerry. Well, has anybody heard this person's name? Neville Roy Singham. Neville Roy Singham. House GOP calls on the Treasury to freeze all of that person's assets. He's a Chinese Communist Party affiliated billionaire accused of channeling millions into radical groups that have sparked violent riots and smear campaigns against Americans. News had never reported this person's name. I would love to see you cut on ABC, NBC, CBS, whatever, and there's some uniforms sitting behind the mic. Military. Good evening, my fellow Americans. Since you are not being told the news, actual facts, we're here to tell you. This is from Christina Guaya News. Singham has spent millions funding militant organizations that have orchestrated violent riots and launched targeted hate campaigns against Americans with different beliefs. Quote, we will no longer allow billionaires to bankroll anti-American political movements on behalf of foreign governments. How come it takes somebody on YouTube to post an article about something that's serious? House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer and Elise Stefanik are urging U.S. Secretary Scott Bessent to immediately freeze the assets of Singham in a letter that wants a zero tolerance against meddling in U.S. affairs, particularly from those aligned with the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. Oh, guess what? TikTok is now partially American owned. Let's see what changes about TikTok. So now here's this multi-billionaire from China nobody's ever heard about because nobody's reporting it. Singham, a U.S.-born tech tycoon who sold his company for nearly $1 billion in 2017 and now lives in Shanghai. That's the way Dianne Feinstein used to say it. Shanghai, when she was participating in the cooperative cities thing in the 90s, and she had a spy for her chauffeur, a Chinese Communist spy for 20 years. Singham has poured tens of millions into organizations like the People's Forum, which admitted to receiving over $20 million from him and the Party for Socialism and Liberation. These organizations have been directly implicated in putting on protests and riots, including the recent ICE riots in Los Angeles that saw chaos, fires, assaults, and attacks on ICE agents. How come we haven't seized his assets already? PSL, a self-avowed Marxist group, has no formal nonprofit status yet, coordinates uh, coordinates nationwide chaos, from campus occupations to street violence, often under the guise of social justice. How many times have we heard social justice? His network extends to anti-Israel agitators like Code Pink and Answer Coalition, which have launched targeted attacks on conservatives, Jews, and pro-America voices. These groups amplify Beijing's narratives, defending China's human rights abuses and inflaming anti-Western sentiment. Nobody's reporting on it. And Congress is calling on the Treasury Secretary. Not a peep. These groups, Singham's funding routed through shell companies has fueled pro-Hamas rallies and shut it down for Palestine riots, blending domestic radicalism with foreign propaganda to undermine U.S. unity. Comer and Stefanik's letter demands a full Treasury evaluation under federal sanctions laws, including asset freezes and seizures, to put a stop to Singham's operation. So, let's see if anybody reports on it. Hi, Sandman. How you doing? Well, what it's time for. It's time for me to start being more verbose. If I get kicked off here, you'll know where I'll be. I didn't used to be able to say the name Epstein for years. Since the day I started my broadcast, I used to have to twist his name so I wouldn't get caught in the algorithm. Now the left is jumping up and down screaming for information. His name being repeated all the time. When they say release the files, I go in comments and I say the files on Obama's chef, the files on Joan Rivers after she outed Big Mike, and I leave it there. The nerve the left has accusing Trump of being a P3DO, right? That's the way they're spelling it, the way we used to spell it in the chats. They're doing it on leftist sites, claiming that Republicans support P3DO philia. When these bastardos have been pushing transgenderism, the psychological abuse of young people, letting dysphoric adults approach other people's children with lewd and lascivious conversations that used to end up with your ass in jail. Now they get away with it. And they got the nerve to say, after 10 years of us ringing the bell about Epstein, they got the nerve to try to blame Trump for it. Trump pointed out something about this dopey Jimmy Kimmel. What he was doing was insinuating that Charlie Kirk deserved what he got. That's what he was doing. He should have been surprised that his own MAGA crowd did it to him, or something of that ilk. Mockery and laughter from the left about what happened to Charlie Kirk, and then protests and pissing and moaning because Kimmel got fired. How more degenerate in your thinking can you be? And I need to be more vociferous about that point. Giving children hormone therapy, they call it. They call it off-label drug use. Namely, it's not approved for the use they are intending to stunt a young person's growth, delay or stop puberty, and it's nowhere intended that the medicine they're prescribing is for that purpose. They call it off-label. That's a felony. When you use medicine other than for what it's supposed to be prescribed for, its use, its approved use. But they've been doing it for years, ruining young lives, destroying lives. And now we have this rash, this outbreak, which is turning into a torrent of vicious, dysphoric individuals going out and committing murder. Nobody's going to pay a price for that. We can't go forward as a society if people don't pay a price for it. Sandman, how you doing? Angel, nice to see you. Yes, I'm Mountain Man Strong. I was going to put, I had myself in a state earlier today, a state of agitation. I should have just took my phone and started recording myself. I was experiencing the silent fury, and I was decided to verbalize it. And then I watched the memorial, and my heart was softened. But my resolve is ever stronger for there to be a comeuppance, for there to be justice and retribution that will ring across the ages. And we can't get the requisite number of people to see and understand why this is necessary if we continue to have a media that purposefully does a disservice to the people by hiding information, refusing to report on reality, and repeating talking points from a foreign government, among a great many other things. There's only so many times you can punch people in the face before you get punched back. Christ told us to turn the other cheek. But he didn't tell us to keep on turning it. If you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. Well, yeah, reverse the Smith-Mundt Act now. Well, rename it the Charlie Kirk Act. But then we have these judges that are constantly challenging the president's authority, and they are dangerous. They're dangerous. Chutkin is now, she was forced to keep out of the deportation argument, but she is widely known as a person who put a lot of people in jail for nothing over J6. And she was actively involved in the persecution of Donald Trump. The facts of the matter is that what happened on JAY 6 was a setup with agitators from Antifa and other foreign influence groups that framed over 1,000 American citizens, some of whom had their lives destroyed. Ashley Babbitt lost her life because of this conspiracy to provoke and frame. The ultimate conspiracy was to put the cherry on top of removing Donald Trump from office. And in a conspiracy, the actions of one hand is the actions of all hands involved. And if I could sit here and say it, and things that we saw with our own damn eyes, how come it isn't news around the world? John Sullivan, I wasn't allowed to say his name. I might get taken down for something. They'll dream up some crap for saying his name. He went to prison. He got $70,000. He was within arm's length of Ashley Babbitt. We saw him in one set of clothing and then saw him change into Trump gear. And he was the farthest thing from a Trump supporter next to Rosie O'Donnell. And it didn't make the news. As a matter of fact, the news colluded with him for the footage and paid him life-changing money. And it takes a little peanut channel like mine to say it. And when I do say facts that are verifiable before our very eyes, I don't know whether I'll be able to broadcast tomorrow. Oh, by the way, I've got a link for Buy Me a Coffee in the description. This is a totally viewer-supported channel. I'm not monetized on YouTube, and if you want to help support the channel, I have a link in the description if you want to help out. And I appreciate everybody that's helped me out very much. Mike and Bev helped out this week. Hilarious too helped out this week. Yeah, I agree. I'm reading some stuff in the chats. I'm not going to say out loud because it does take. We're watching a show, but the thing is that I'm going to find a clip. It might be too rough for people to watch, but it's on YouTube, and life gets cheap when you're dealing with fanatics. When you're dealing with people who have satanic views, but they think they're doing good. They are the most vicious people you'll ever come across. Thank you, Debbie. Well, I'm just reading the chats. The overall movement is to the good. To the good. There are hundreds of thousands of people that are now kicking themselves in the rear end for voting for Obama. At least the ones who voted the second time for him are now seeing they were duped. When people were saying that Michelle is a guy, right? People thought that was so insane. There couldn't be a man dressed up like a woman become the first lady of the United States. Are you crazy? Not so crazy now, is it? Not so crazy that all this crap started boiling up when those two got in. Trump said he was going to have fun with Mike Shell after what she said about him. Let's see when that fun begins. Yeah, Roseanne Boylan was pretty much beaten to death. So anyway, we got this report about a major financier of unrest. I'm trying to move that. Oh my goodness. I see a report from Sky News Australia. No, Sky News. More than 1,000 migrants arrive in small boats in one day, despite returns deal with France. That's 365,000. How much? No. Yeah, I guess a year, 1,000 a day coming into your country. We had more. We had way more than that. But they're crippled. Europe is crippled. They're going to need us to get out of this crap. Do you believe this statistic? Let me find it. That over half of the population, Ukraine has lost almost half its population in 3 years. According to BBC, citing the State Migration Service, there are only 28.7 million people registered in the country. This is almost half of what it was before the war. How come nobody's reporting that? Ukraine's lost half its population in about 3 years. Well, what do you all think of this report? Am I being too rough on you, Tizzle? YouTube deleted the official channel of Venezuelan President Maduro, which had more than 233,000 subscribers. The channel, used for press conferences and official events, disappeared on September 19th. You think they did it because they wanted to? Or they were made to do it? You know, they've got Bolsonaro's in a hospital, supposedly. And some of the sites I've been reading have been saying that he's extremely ill and believe that he's being poisoned. That's the Brazilian president who spent some time in Florida and at Mar-a-Lago, and he demanded his return. The communist regime of Lula, formerly a criminal who was released from prison and miraculously won, and also had their own version of J dash and then 6. So let's hope that's not the case. Bloomberg says Putin is intensifying attacks on Ukraine because he believes Trump will not intervene, and Ukraine rejected his territorial demands at the August summit. The Ruskies think that Bloomberg is a hilarious source, citing sources in the Kremlin, like the Kremlin's talking to Bloomberg. Zelensky admitted that the Kupiansk area of the Kharkiv region, almost about half of which is already controlled by Russian troops, quote, tough actions are being carried out. Can you imagine being some 19-year-old kid ended up in that hellhole? The former president of Ukraine, Yushchenko, stated he will not be satisfied with even reaching the 1991 borders. In his opinion, Ukraine should aim to capture Moscow. And then the Russian journalist said he himself, of course, has no relation to combat actions, just like his 2 sons living in the USA. In other words, a big talker who hadn't got any skin in the game. There are forces in the European Union that are pushing for war with Russia. We all know that. And I'm sure Donald Trump knows it too. The U.S. will no longer sell Patriot missile systems, according to The Atlantic. The Pentagon has declared these systems in short supply and has started rejecting new requests from partners for systems deliveries. There's also information that restrictions have been imposed on other types of weapons for sale to other countries. Well, 2 things. That might be one of the things Pete Hegseth was talking about as far as restricting information given to the press, even if it's not classified. And the other thing, I think they're cutting off some of these rogue generals, colonels, the C.I.A. dark money. Remember WikiLeaks emails about a certain general asking for help to launder millions of dollars? Lloyd Austin, by the way. Trump stated that the implementation of the TikTok deal has begun, but the U.S. will have control over the social network. Trump also said, I don't want to profit from war in Ukraine, but we do profit because they buy our weapons. What's the other thing Trump put out? If Afghanistan doesn't give Bagram Air Base back to those that built it, the United States of America, bad things are going to happen. Donald J. Trump, DJT. Well, according to the Riskies, the Afghans responded, they're not going to give Bagram back. And if we want to fight for another 20 years, then we can bring it on. If that's actually what they said, they need to remember the old generalship told Trump it would take years to wipe out ISIS. General Raisin Cain did it in a week. The old generalship took 20 years to screw around with Afghanistan and Iraq. What Trump's got set up now is going to be a heck of a lot quicker and a lot more brutal. Trump also said, I just toured Washington, D.C., and it's a totally different place than it was last year. No tents, manicured grass and parks, clean streets, streets, no gangs or vicious criminals. The place is beautiful and safe, and it's going to remain that way. What a difference good government makes. Go to D.C. and enjoy history being made. President Donald J. Trump. I thought he was just going to leave it at enjoy history. But he's saying, watch history being made. You know, Mike Johnson put out a statement. And it's one of the reasons that I know for a fact that Biden didn't get 81 million votes. Anybody with a brain, what did he say? We are not going to pay for health care for illegals. We are not going to pay health care for illegals. That's an 80-20 issue. You ask that question, 80% of the time, people will say, hell no, we're not going to pay for it. There you go, Sandman said it himself. But I saw every one of the Democrat candidates during the 2020 election raise their hand saying they would pay health care for illegals. Then a couple months later, he's supposed to have a landslide win. Any idiot would know that there's something rotten in Denmark. So, I see Ryko. Yeah, the interesting thing, how many in the media will get tied into Ryko? One hand equals the actions of all hands. And that includes what happens as a result of the conspiracy. I have a conspiracy to rob a jewelry store. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. You're going to get the back door. You get the front door. So-and-so drives a getaway car. Yeah. We'll do it this time. Okay. No mention of anybody losing their life. But if something goes sideways and the old man running jewelry store loses his life, me and everybody else is guilty of that loss of life, whether it's negligent homicide, first-degree murder, whatever. Look how many people have lost their lives. Okay, people say what they say about Ashley Babbitt, and but no, during the summer of love, people lost their lives. People were beaten in the streets. Trump cracks down on foreign aid workers, adds $100,000 to that H-1B business. H-1B. That's supposed to be for really brilliant people. We got to do something. We can't get this done anywhere else. Well, it turns out that's where a lot of these truck drivers got in that can't read road signs. They were even bringing strippers in for H-1B visas. So anyway, it's a good way to sum it up, Gary. How come I can't put that on the screen? Wait a minute. I want to put it on the screen. Hang on. Let me see if that does it. Whoa. I want to put that on the screen because I concur. Gary says, I may be misinformed, but this is what I know. Nothing is what it seems. But I'm ready for what's to come. It is time. It's time to do the arrests. That Trump message Pam Bondi about, and a lot more. I'm trying to get it to go up there. Let me see. Huh. Maybe I do. Let me try this. I've done it before. I don't see what the problem is. There we go. Here we go. There. Seems smaller than when I used to put them up there. But you all can read it. We're all ready for what's to come. Like I said at the beginning of the broadcast, if I went to bed tonight and they were rounding them up, and the you know what hit the fan tomorrow during the announcement about autism, I'm ready for it. After they did what they did to Charlie Kirk, I said, I'm ready to throw down. I'm ready to throw down. But we don't want to throw down. We want them rounded up, and we want them to pay the price. And we want to make sure this never happens again. All right, folks. What do I always say? I say thank you for spending your precious time with me. And I'll be going live tomorrow night if everything goes smooth. And again, I will say with a heavy heart that we're praying for you, Justin Bean. We all hope that the best that can happen does happen, and that you and your family weather this storm. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Ann. Good night to you too. So you all have a great night. I'll be seeing you soon. This is Mountain Man, over and out.